The four Gospels record 37 different miracles that Jesus performed during his earthly ministry. And none of Jesus' miracles were performed randomly for amusement or for show. Each was accompanied by a message and either met a serious human need or confirmed his identity and authority as the Son of God. Sometimes we get caught up in the awe of the miracle and miss the point. Sometimes the message can elude us because of its simplicity or because it lies beneath the surface. Today in the gospel reading, we encounter the first miracle that Jesus performed. It's interesting to note that Jesus performs this first miracle at a wedding, perhaps in recognition of the importance of marriage and the difficulty that marriages encounter. Briefly, Jesus via Mary comes to the rescue of a couple who didn't properly estimate the wine requirements for their wedding, a potential source of embarrassment for them and their family. When we encounter these kinds of miracles, it's easy to take the event at face value because of the nice story and the happy ending. One of the techniques that I like to use is to have people insert themselves into the characters in the reading. And I would like us to do that briefly this morning. This enables us to look at the event from each character's perspective, like walking a mile in another person's shoes. We will exclude Jesus and Mary's roles because they aren't like us, given their freedom from original sin, thereby putting them way out of our league and way above our pay grade. That leaves the following: the wedding couple and their family, the guests, the chief steward, the servants, and the disciples. If we place ourselves in the shoes of the wedding couple and their family, we would find ourselves so occupied with the celebration, with relatives and friends, that we probably do not even know that the wine had run out. The reading doesn't mention anyone who realized that there was a wine shortage, but somehow it got to Mary, perhaps by one of the servants. So no miracle is recognized by them. If we place ourselves in the shoes of the guests, we are likely not even aware of the situation, with perhaps the recognition that at some point the wine had drastically improved. But so again, no miracle recognized. If we place ourselves in the shoes of the chief wine steward, we really don't know how the wine was obtained, but we sure knew it was better wine. Again, no miracle recognized. So up to this point, none of the people whose shoes we've walked in knows anything about a miracle. Therefore, it's not a big splash. If we place ourselves in the shoes of the servant, we would have seen the empty jars. We would have filled them up to the brim with water following the instructions from Jesus, and see that the water was carried off to the chief steward for tasting. Using our powers of deduction, we could have concluded that plain water is not taken to the chief steward for tasting. Using our senses, perhaps we notice the aroma or the change in color. We were in the unique position to see the entire miracle as it unfolded right before our eyes, doing only what we were asked to do. Can't you hear yourself asking yourselves, what really just happened here, in disbelief? And if we place ourselves in the shoes of the disciples, even though we really didn't participate, we got to observe the whole event. And we start to realize that Jesus is who he says he is. And the gospel reading confirms this when he says, and his disciples believed in him. So the miracle is finally recognized. But the vast majority of people did not recognize that a miracle had ever happened. It was recognized by so few. Mary, the servants, and the disciples. That was it, unless the word spread later on. Is that our experience in our own culture today? Miracles don't happen. Or is it just that we don't recognize them as happening? Or are we just not positioning ourselves in the center of where the action is to see God's work in our midst? A superficial assessment would be that Jesus performed the miracle just to get a young couple out of an awkward position. It is possible, but I don't think so. If it is not about the miracle, then it has to be about the message. The Bible is full of miracles and messages, and something that I call miracle messages. And I believe there's a miracle message associated with every miracle, and they require some reflection on our own part to uncover, because a lot of the messages are personal. We may consider a miracle like the changing of water as a one and done, but we shouldn't. The real miracle is in the ongoing message, the miracle message that we must retain and that we are able to recall daily in our lives. God's power and God's glory are hidden because we choose not to act. And God's power and God's glory depend on human activity, our activity. We choose not to act because we choose not to have an active, ongoing relationship with Jesus. We don't even place ourselves in a position where we can hear God's wishes. But let's go back to those shoes of the servants again, perhaps because they are the ones that we can relate to the easiest. In their simple everyday action of filling the jars, Jesus made something extraordinary happen. The servants followed orders even though they could not understand the reason. They participated in a miracle by doing something very ordinary. And that is what you and I are called to do, to act in the same way without question. It's called faith. Mary's words, do whatever he tells you to do. And that is the miracle message. Although I excluded us from walking in the shoes of Mary earlier, by no means am I saying that we should not emulate her. In fact, quite the contrary. We are called to act as she did and she continues to do. And that is interceding for others by asking for miracles and acting like the servants in doing the ordinary things for others and leaving the rest up to God. Mary started this miracle by saying the wedding had no wine. Is she saying that about us here today? How often do we run out of wine in our lives, metaphorically speaking? We have the expression, the honeymoon is over. Other than the obvious application, it means that the good times are over and we are back to the joyless part of life. We like school, but oh, those exams. We like our job, but oh, that stress. We love our spouse and our marriage, but then we claim our spouse has changed and the sparks are gone. Somehow, this doesn't compute and is not consistent with the message of Jesus. I came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. John 10:10. There are lots of people who are content with plain water, but Jesus promises us the wine, a symbol of joy. And the good news is that there is not supposed to be a joyless part of life. Even in trials and tribulations, knowing that God is with us is meant to bring us joy. There is the wine of joy for the taking here at Mass. Remember that the host is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. Reaching out and helping people will help transform our own lives as well. And there's an open invitation here at St. Michael's. Who is up for participating in the next miracle with Jesus? because it's there for the making. And that is what being a medic is all about. Allowing God to work through us, warming hearts and healing wounds.